Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
Dr. Mark Davini, doesn't he do that well?
Who?
It's you.
Oh.
Introducing and welcoming us. That's why I'm so comfortable with him doing it. I like listening to
I try to do it
you
suddenly to just spark you into the episode.
Into the mood, yes. What are we talking about today, Paul?
So there's a lot of different, shall we say, things that you need to know when you're choosing your malpractice coverage, doctor.
Yeah. Here's a thought.
Yeah.
Set the scene for the whole podcast.
Okay, let's do that.
Malpractice insurance is like a parachute. If you need it, you want it to work first time.
Yeah, I was free falling, and then all of a sudden, yeah.
You know, it's that old saying, as you're falling down, you're going, everything looks good so far.
Yeah. But boy, you're right. Again, insurance is one of those things you hope you never need to use, but boy, you want to make sure you have it and you have yourself fully covered for whatever scenario you can and may not think of.
Yeah. As a shameless plug for Tools of Practice, isn't that what compliance is all about?
That is true.
Yes.
That is true.
So what are we talking about when we're talking about insurance? Malpractice insurance.
Yeah. I think that probably to get everyone on the same page, if they haven't thought about this, why would they have, right? You just buy whatever and now you can get your license and
do
life
what you're
goes on.
told or whatever.
Yeah. But there are really two major policy types out there: the claims made and the occurrence.
Okay.
So I prefer one over the other, but let's talk about those. So Doc, what's a claims made policy all about?
Well, the claims made is the one that only covers if the policy is active. So as long as you're paying your premiums and cancel, if something happens, then you're covered. That's a claims made, only while the policy is active.
So what you're saying, if I'm understanding this, right? So let's just say that I have a claims made policy and I decide to take some time off from being a chiropractor, or I'm retiring and I say, well, I don't need this anymore because I'm not practicing right now. So I let it lapse or I terminate the policy. And then someone comes and makes a claim, you're saying, after I terminated the policy, but the policy was in effect at the time, am I covered?
No. That's exactly what the whole point is, that while you pay your premium, you're covered. The minute you stop paying your premium, you're covered. You're no longer covered for things you might have done in the past, and certainly not covered for anything you're doing in the present. So it's important to understand that the claims-made policy, which will be less expensive because they are only covering you during the time you're paying them.
Versus the one I like the better, occurrence, right? Occurrence, which if the policy was active in a time period, if a claim was made that supposedly happened during that time period, whether the policy is in force currently or not, you have coverage.
You're covered. So if I do retire and I had an occurrence policy and somebody makes a claim against me for something that happened while I was in practice, and even though I'm not paying for that policy anymore, I'm covered, which is what you want. You really don't want a claims-made policy. Let's just put that right out there. It's just a way to lessen your costs, but it certainly isn't the kind of coverage you're looking for most of the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel too secure unless I had an occurrence policy because I want to make sure that I'm covered perpetually for the time period that the policy was effective, right?
Right. So maybe some of you are out there right now thinking, oh, crap, I have a claims made. Okay, so what?
Wah, wah, wah.
Exactly. I have a claims made. What am I going to do? Oh, no. And so you do decide you want to switch to an occurrence policy. You will also need a tail coverage policy. You're going to need a policy that covers you between when the claims made ended and the occurrence policy begins. Otherwise, that period of time you're just rolling the dice on.
This is like getting like a prescription for a side effect on your original prescription, right? You need a policy to cover your policy.
Exactly. That's why we don't like
Yeah,
claims made.
I don't like them. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's for sure.
So within the policies themselves, you have coverage limits. Now, everyone's probably familiar with like the $1 million, $3 million, right? But within, there's other limits or coverage offerings with limits within certain policies too, aren't there? I mean,
yeah. I mean, first of all, you have to look at that and say, is that enough? That's
I
the
don't
number
know
one
today.
question. You know, you might think, oh, $1 million, $3 million, that's $1 million per occurrence, $3 million aggregate. You know,
Yeah.
not a bad deal, right? Except when you took the policy, $1 million was a lot of money.
Doesn't feel like a lot anymore, does it?
Not what it used to be.
I mean, it sounds still like a lot, but not
Yeah.
really.
I do a lot of malpractice defense, and I have to say that in the last 3 to maybe 4 years, the number of claim demands for policy limits has increased dramatically. So that means that the very first ask is your policy limit, because they don't think $1 million is a lot of money anymore. And guess what? It isn't.
And you're a doctor, so you probably have other things, right?
Right. So
I mean,
what
if
happens
it's
if you exceed your limit?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so let's just say, I hate to say it this way, but let's say it's a slam dunk malpractice. I hate that. Sorry, doctors.
Yeah.
But we have to use the extreme here.
That's right. We're talking malpractice here. We're not talking about,
So like I've known in auto policies, right? Malpractice says this is no contest. Here's your $1 million. Oh, by the way, they're looking for a lot more. We recommend you get an attorney. Good luck, right? I mean, they're out. Once they pay their policy limit,
right,
they're out.
They're out.
And now it's you with nobody in between you.
And your money. And I know everybody's out there thinking, yeah, but I'm a corporation. I have that veil of protection.
The corporate veil.
You know, that veil of protection is made out of Kleenex.
Yeah.
Okay? It offers you no real protection.
This might be a good podcast to talk about sort of what you're writing off in business. Because if you're expensing personal stuff in your corporation, the attorneys are going to be looking to break that veil, right?
Exactly.
Some states are way better at protecting that veil than others.
But for the most part, if something happens in your office, and even though you're a corporation, when it comes time to sue you, the corporation will be sued, and you will be sued personally because you own the corporation. And if you don't own the corporation and the person who owns the corporation, say it's your spouse, will also be
sued. Or
your
ex-spouse.
Or your ex-spouse.
Yeah, sue me, please.
Yeah. So everybody gets sued is the point, and nobody escapes the malpractice claim. And so one of the things that you always have to look for when you're looking at malpractice carriers are, do I have corporate coverage?
Or personal umbrella coverage. Yeah. Those aren't very expensive.
Yeah. There are those that will include your corporation in your individual, or for a very nominal fee, include your corporation in, or some require you to have a whole separate policy. Now you've just doubled your malpractice cost. So these are the things you have to pay attention to when you're buying malpractice insurance. So you might say, $1.3 million. Yeah, it's not what it used to be. And you might think about going more than that now, but at least $1.3 million. Nothing less than $1.3 million. That's
most state boards won't let you even get away with less than
right.
that.
Right. If they have any kind of malpractice requirement, it's $1.3 million now. And you have to make sure that if you're a corporation, the corporation is part of the policy or included in part of the policy, so that when they do name everybody, cousin Ralph down the street.
Well, if you've got non-covered officers like a layperson who maybe is helping you financially in your corporation. So they're on there.
Yeah.
They don't have malpractice coverage because they're not a doctor.
Right.
They need to think about, and you should probably help them think about their exposure.
Exactly. And we won't get into the other types of policies that can help you, like, an umbrella policy or an injury policy, something like that. But right now we're talking malpractice.
Yeah.
So what does malpractice cover? Paul, what does malpractice cover?
Well, it might be easier to say, what does not covered? Because I always think about my malpractice in my massage license, but I can tell you that chiropractic is far more generous in its coverage oftentimes.
Yeah, it comes down to your
You know?
state board
Yeah.
and how they
Scope
define
is probably the
scope.
word, right? Yeah.
Scope.
Scope.
So you want to make sure your malpractice carrier covers scope of practice. Because a lot of times they'll say, we cover the adjustment and modalities to include the following only.
You make a good point because I'm a big fan of, learning new technique, learning new stuff. Well, let's say you go to a seminar and you pick up this great new modality or therapy.
Yeah.
You make a big investment and you're doing this at your office and you never actually asked your board or knew whether it was in scope or not.
Right. Especially if the device treats something that's outside your scope.
I can say on my state board, scope questions happen regularly. They're always asking, is this in scope? Is that in scope? As a regulator, my approach is if I can say this is in scope, it's better than not because then you can regulate it, right? But if it's outside scope, then it's outside your malpractice coverage, period, end of story.
Yeah. Well, here's a perfect example. There are devices out there that measure your brainwave. And you use that.
I tried it on you. Nothing came up.
Yeah, it was a straight line all the way across. Right? And then they use those findings to feed back to you modifications in your behavior. And then you say, okay, why do you do this?
Is that what you gave me for a Christmas gift?
That's that funny little cap with all the
Yeah.
wires. Yeah, yeah. I told you to wear it like 6 times a day.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Mark is brilliant.
Yeah,
Mark is brilliant. No, there's no input. It's only output,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, sometimes they have these devices and then you ask the doctor, what are you treating? Oh, these things are great. They're good for anxiety. They're good for depression. They're good for autism. They're good for this. They're good. I think it makes your fingernails grow faster. They'll tell you all this stuff. And I said, oh, that's great. Are any of those things in your scope of practice, according to your state board?
Right.
Because here in Massachusetts, it's very clear what scope is, right? Subluxations.
I'll put it more real world. I just picked up a light therapy mask to help with wrinkles.
Right. There you go.
Personal use sounds great, but
is it in scope?
Right.
Is it in scope?
Because light therapy is in scope most of the time, if not all, but for what reason?
Right. Here in Massachusetts, we can treat subluxations of the spine and related structures. So maybe it's a brain subluxation. I don't care. That's possible, but
I'm going to accuse you of that from now on.
I have a brain subluxation. Oh, yeah. I'm not even going to talk about what the adjustment is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Sledgehammer, whatever.
Yeah, bada boom. Okay. But the point is that if you keep trying to say you treat anxiety with this device, anxiety is not in your scope of practice. Again, Massachusetts, perfect example. We cannot treat infections. Stated right in our law. We cannot treat infections. And then we have a ton of people, just like everyone else, where they bring they have their patients bring their babies in for ear infections. Said, you're not treating the ear infection, are you? You're treating the subluxation, and the ear infection may or may not go away, but you treat what's in scope.
What a wonderful byproduct of adjusting the subluxation.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I didn't even know that was going to happen. Oh my God. But the point is you have to make sure that what your malpractice policy covers. Very, very important. And then some carriers will actually give you a break, whether you're full or part-time. They'll define what a part-time practice, less than 20 hours a week or more than this many patients a week or whatever. So it becomes very, very important to understand what you're buying.
Right. And then when you're looking, I know we're all looking at price probably first, but also dig a little deeper into these companies that are offering it to see how long have they been around, what is their corporate financial position or not, right?
Yeah. Will they be there when you need them?
Right.
Will that parachute work?
Or is there like an anvil in it? You know what I mean?
That's right.
What's their reputation? Take a look on the reviews. See how many stars they have. I always say if there's like nothing negative, then to me, I'm leery of that company. So I don't expect 5 stars across the board, but I want to see if someone has a really poor review, what are the details of it? Is it sometimes it's just personal, but sometimes it's like, okay, well, if that's a scenario they wouldn't cover, I'm going to ask that agent. This is what I read.
It's like buying life insurance and the company doesn't stay in business for your life.
Yeah, right. Hello.
Here's probably next to whether it's a claims made or an occurrence policy, the next most important feature that you absolutely need to make sure you have in your malpractice policy is consent to settle.
I'm going to echo and even elaborate on how enthused I am about you knowing this, because in my world,
why would it be so shocked?
In my world, in massage therapy, I don't know of a policy that allows the premium holder the power to decline a settlement.
Whoa.
Right.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
Which is frankly, it pisses me off, because if I want to stand on principle, because I didn't do this, but the nuisance claim, they just want to go away, so they'll pay it out. But now that's of record. Now my state board's going to get that and may or may not take action on that. Oh, it irritates the bleep out of me.
Oh, yeah. And it will travel with you forever. Tell me about your friend with the hot pack.
Yeah. So, friend, physical therapist, great physical therapist, been in business a long time. But when he first came out of school, and I blame the supervisor, he burned somebody. I don't know if it was a hot or cold bath, but he burned somebody. Forevermore. Now, this is straight out of school. It happens. It's like, but the number one malpractice claim is a burn, right? Or it used to be. So, forevermore now, he has to explain this on
everybody he credentials with, or re-credentials.
Oh, yeah. It comes up decades later now.
It came up on Thanksgiving. At the table.
Yeah, right. It's annoying. And so, okay, did it happen? Yeah. Was it his fault? I guess, right? But the point is,
a lot of times it isn't.
If it's not your fault, but the nuisance portion of it with the carrier says, well, if I can pay $1,000 and this will go away, it's way easier than defending it.
Right. A lot of times there's very little injury to speak of, very little permanent residual, because most malpractices you have to prove a breach of standard of care, which is scope, right, and procedure protocols. You have to prove that there was an injury that resulted from that breach of standard of care, because sometimes you may breach standard of care and it didn't hurt the person. And then there has to be some type of permanent residual damage that they are trying to recover a settlement for. So you don't have those things, or if any one of them are missing, or maybe it's just a good case, but it's going to cost a lot of money for you to settle. And the malpractice carrier doesn't give you the choice to say, I want to go to trial. This is my reputation. This is my future. This is my everything. And they go, yeah, but it's going to cost us $200,000 to try this case. And we can settle it for $100. So we're going to settle it for $100. And you have no choice. And there are policies out there to do this. So be very leery of any policy that's significantly less than the others that you compare to, because it could be a claims made. It could be that they don't give you consent to settle. It may not be covering full scope. It may not cover your corporation. It may be only, for a certain number of patients per week. Boom. We just talked about all these things that make your malpractice company different from another malpractice company.
Well, and to me, another key aspect of coverage is defense in board complaints.
Oh, good one.
I mean,
perfect. Do they cover them?
Right. Do they? To me, that's a key question, because anybody can complain about anything. And if you think that you get, oh, that was such a nice patient, I'll just send her back or him back an email and just explain it and they'll understand. No, because oftentimes it's not the patient who wrote that first response. It just came under the patient's pen, but it wasn't them.
What?
It's the attorney just waiting to pounce.
Here's a real world scenario of how that makes a huge difference. again, here in Massachusetts, and a lot of malpractice and board defense. I do a lot of malpractice and board defense. And there was a time where one of the main malpractice carriers didn't cover more than $5,000 for board complaints. So the board knew this. So every time a consent agreement came out, which is a board's version of an out-of-court settlement, it was this outrageous amount of punishment for the smallest infraction. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years probation with monitors every month, blah, blah, blah. Constant. Couldn't fight it because the person didn't have the money to fight it because it would take at least $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 if they went to a hearing. Then all of a sudden, this major malpractice carrier up their board complaint coverage to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Now, the lawyer's opinion was, let's go to hearing. Let's go to hearing. Let's go to hearing. And the state didn't have the money to do all the hearings. So now the financial responsibility flipped to the other side. And all of a sudden, these settlements came down to 6 months. Monitor only once, monitor only twice, maybe just a letter of reprimand or whatever. Huge, huge shift. And what was to what is.
All because there was coverage and in my opinion, good coverage.
Good coverage.
Now, let me ask you this question, though. If there is an accusation or board complaint about inappropriate touch.
Again, the ruling is that a malpractice carrier will cover you if it's within scope. So if the behavior was, the alleged behavior was committed during something that was within scope, and then the expert on your side, someone like me, said, guess what? Did everything right.
What if it was a sexual allegation, though?
Same thing. As long as the procedure was within scope, the malpractice carrier will cover it. But if the patient takes it to criminal, and there's a criminal conviction, which now is something that the malpractice carrier won't cover. So a lot of it has to do with what is being said that you did. Was it done for a clinical reason that was real? And was the procedure a proper clinical procedure and the patient just misperceived it, or you had lousy communication, all that same old stuff? That's fine. But if all of a sudden it goes to criminal and there's a conviction, you lose your malpractice coverage. Now it's all on you. I just had a case go that way, unfortunately.
In comparison, chiropractic malpractice seems to be more generous.
Very generous,
Depending on the carrier, but
very inexpensive.
I mean, overall.
My God, if you're a cardiac or thoracic surgeon, you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for malpractice insurance.
Radiologists.
OBGYNs. I had an OBGYN friend, this is many years ago, they said, we just accept the fact that at any one time we have 1 to 3 malpractice cases ongoing.
Takes a tough skin
to them. It's just cost of doing business, but to a chiropractor, we just don't hurt people. And I can tell you right now, it's very disheartening to most people, and it takes years to settle. Nothing settles, whether it be by trial or by settlement. It takes years for this process to play out, and chiropractors take it to heart. So you want to make sure that the person holding your hand through this is someone that will be there, is well paid, and when the time comes, cancel. If you have to settle, that money is there also. And if you go to trial because you're innocent and you prove yourself not guilty of this or innocent, then the money is there too. This is not a small choice or a small decision, people. This is really, really important.
Well, that's why we're doing a whole episode on it, I think. But and so in thinking about that risk management, what I like about some of the coverage we just talked about is you get access to not only good legal advice, but experts in the field in which they must know a lot.
Exactly. It all comes down to the expert and their opinion and where the malpractice carrier comes in. And if that expert is not fully on your side and the malpractice carrier has the ability or the consent to settle without your permission, you're done. It's over.
Yeah. And I have to say, from the regulatory side, when I have been in these settlement conferences and talking with the licensee and their representative, their attorney, there is a night and day difference between an attorney who has zero experience in the regulatory field, they're criminal or they're civil, versus an attorney who's representing their licensee, who has vast experience in the regulatory process. And I can say that the attorneys that don't have experience do not do their clients many favors when it comes to.
No. And we're not going to get into the whole procedure and process of malpractice, but I am going to present one thought to you. If you were ever presented with any type of malpractice demand letter, please do not respond until you've contacted your malpractice carrier first. Stop.
Right.
Stop. Say nothing. Do nothing. Talk to your malpractice carrier. It's not going to be held against you. Doesn't necessarily mean anything at that point in time. But most of the problem that you run into up front anyway is trying to undo everything said and done by the practitioner once they got word that there might be a claim against them. So please don't react other than just talking to your malpractice carrier.
And please, please, please don't dig into the file and make some adjustments that might enhance your position.
Oh, God. Yeah. Again, we're going to do a whole podcast. We can do a whole podcast on just malpractice and what everybody does wrong. And that'll be a good one.
Actually,
Things people do with malpractice. But let's leave you with
If you want to call in and tell us what you've done.
Yeah. This is it. This is your chance to get it off your chest.
Yeah.
Right? So let me leave you with this one thought. No one can predict the future, but insurance can help protect from it.
That is true.
True.
Until AI predicts the future.
Oh,
Right?
I'll be back.
Yeah. So as we close, I think we've emphasized that you need to interview the malpractice carriers to make sure that you know something about the coverages, the company itself. Are there group discounts? Does your trade association offer some kind of discount? Are you full or part-time? You name it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking yourself all these questions. First thing you should do is pull out your current malpractice and see if it's occurrence or claims made. Because if it's claims made,
you need to change that immediately.
Right. And don't change it without some kind of tail end coverage just to protect yourself.
Do your homework. Do your due diligence.
Yeah.
And let it be done.
Like most insurances, the more you pay, the more you get for the most part. Just fill in the blank on the type.
And if you never use it, it's the best money you'll ever pay.
Exactly. On that note,
Yes.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Mark Davini.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.